everywhere throughout learning.
Literacy in science overall is...
Literacy basically means like...
Literacy in science encompasses a whole bunch of things.
And we use literacy all of the time, like all of the time, whether it be reading word problems, listening to YouTube videos, and being able to take an example and create problems from it. Oh gosh, we use literacy through diving into the real world purpose of our concepts, taking notes, explaining our thinking. It is constant.
Literacy to me in science classroom is really about what can the students see, feel, or interact with or read that helps them engage with the content. So when we think about literacy, we got to think about how are they learning the vocab, how are they interacting with the materials that they have. So we got to consider how we're presenting the material to them and how they're going to receive it. I think we need to get them more critically engaged in evaluating sources within science as opposed to just straight vocab. So I think we need to take a shift more into inquiry about and critical thinking as well, about how to get them as engaged in critical thinking skills as opposed to regurgitation.
Literacy basically means like an understanding of the material presented in front of you and having an awareness of what it means versus like how did we get it. So if we're talking about media literacy, data literacy, algorithmic literacy, what is the factors that's causing me to get this material in front of me, and how can I understand it to add to my overall understanding? I'm just thinking about text. Probably the biggest factor is giving kids a variety of text to choose from, letting them have some choice in the choice, like what do I want to choose from, and even choice of level, like Newsela, or there's some UDL features where they can have it approachable to them. And then also challenging students to engage with the text instead of just being a passive learner. So are we annotating? Are we annotating for a purpose? Are we rereading it to clarify understandings? Are we discussing it? Are we coming back to it after a few days instead of just read this page and then forget it, making sure it's an active, engaging piece? We're talking about data literacy. What does the data mean? Who organized the data? How does the data presented to me? What biases may or may not be in the data? And then even algorithmic literacy is like, who's giving me this information? So does my Google search look like your Google search? Are they getting different information? And who's curating it? Also, probably the two skills that go along with it most is recognizing bias in any source. So whether it's a language bias, whether it's a cultural bias, whether it's a data bias, what's the point of view of the author and how do they try to get it to me? And with biasness, just teaching kids to be skeptical on anything they read, anything they consume, whether it's a video, whether it's a game, whether it's lab data. Just always ask questions like, okay, how do I know this is true? What support do I have for this? To be science, you want to question, but also you always want to question the answers that you get. Be skeptical.
Literacy in science encompasses a whole bunch of things, one of them being academic vocabulary. How are teachers building academic vocabulary for their students, and how are they teaching them the syntax for when and how to use words to create and convey meaning, using the academic vocabulary and using that in academic language. Engaging in discourse is also a huge thing that we do in science, and to be literate in science you need to be able to do those claims, evidence, and reasoning, and to be able to engage in that discourse and back up the claims with evidence and science and be able to discuss those things. Being literate in science also means being able to dissect and get meaning from charts, graphs, and different symbols, both to take in those meanings and to create those meanings for others.
The message gained from the interviews and personal experience is that literacy in science is about conveying purpose and creating relevancy with the text, whatever that text may be. One way I connect with students and create relevancy is through food, especially when I get to teach about body systems and how that food affects us. We want students engaged with the topics at hand, not just teachers funneling information at them and then asking them to regurgitate it. We want them involved to build their knowledge. As we build their knowledge and understanding of academic vocabulary in science, we also need to teach them the syntax of when and how to use what they've learned to convey meaning appropriately. How we use language in science may not be the same as in other subjects. One way we build their knowledge in literacy in science is by making meaningful connections by relating content to other disciplines. Tying in a unit on photosynthesis and growing crops would be an easy connection to make to Esperanza Rising if the students were reading the novel in language arts. These relationships across multiple subjects can really help students build their literacy in both content areas. Another way to build literacy is through engaging hands-on models, of course, that turn into tasty treats when they're done. Teaching students literacy through discourse by engaging in debates and teaching them CER or claims evidence reasoning reports is another strategy. This common practice of creating CER reports gives students the tools to back up their claims with evidence to have a conversation and convey their meaning. In order to produce CER reports with evidence, they also need to learn to be critical consumers of information by realizing the rhetoric of the authors and having the skills to dissect the data presented in front of them. Dissecting information can also come in the form of simulations, where trial and error leads to understanding. Teaching students to make observations and evaluate outcomes is a huge part of building their scientific literacy. Using technologies for simulations is one way to help build their knowledge, but finding out where they are in their understanding is a big part of the teacher's role. Tools like ClassTime offer engaging ways for students to be evaluated in real time, or using tools like Flipgrid that offer differentiated options for students to submit their thinking on assignments when expressing through paper is a little more difficult. All these things and more go into building student literacy in science. Along the way, we want students to always keep an open mind because we want them to be lifelong learners. We will always want them to wonder, we want them to be skeptical, and we want them asking lots of questions. Imagine the possibilities for our students and let their imagination take flight. I am a literacy teacher in science, and I want you to take your understanding of literacy in any discipline to the next level by thinking differently. What does literacy mean to you?